purpose does the gentlelady seek recognition?
I have a unanimous consent request to enter the following statements into the record. Organizational statements from the Center for Gender and Refugee Studies, Church World Service, and National Immigration Forum.
Without objection.
Thank you.
Chair now recognizes Mr. Roy of Texas.
I thank the chairman. Mr. Scott, we were just told that we're unable to get workers into this country. True or false, we get somewhere around 1 million green cards every year, and we have seasonal workers that are able to come here and work under our current system under the law.
That's correct.
And currently at our border, what do we have right now in terms of our ability for Border Patrol to stop the flow between ports of entry? Or is it in fact that Border Patrol is processing people at the ports of entry?
The Border Patrol stays outside the ports of entry themselves, but the Border Patrol is literally, it's almost acting as a port because they're processing getaways and they're leaving hundreds of miles of border wide open.
For example, at a tent like in Eagle Pass, right, where you've got a 10-acre facility where you're processing 1,500 people a day. Is Border Patrol a part of that operation?
Yes, sir. Yes.
As opposed to actually being on the line and being able to go patrol the border between the ports of entry as they're supposed to do?
Correct. And there's been some numbers reported, but I think what's important is even if half of the Border Patrol agents are deployed to the field at the beginning of the shift, within an hour or so, they're overwhelmed with thousands of more illegal aliens, and then they are processing as well, leaving the border wide open.
Chief Scott, do we know how much fentanyl or dangerous narcotics come in between our ports of entry or dangerous individuals?
We have no idea, but there's no shortage in Chicago or New York.
Right, so this claim by my colleagues on the other side of the aisle that all of the fentanyl comes in at the ports of entry, we literally don't know how much is coming in between the ports of entry because Border Patrol is unable to do its job while it's being overwhelmed by the failed policies of this administration. Is that true?
That is accurate. And if you look at the statistics, anytime illegal immigration across the border between the ports slows down, drug seizures actually increase because agents are actually out there identifying it.
Supervisor Kenny, your community has been dramatically impacted, right, by the number of individuals that have been dumped into your community. Can you quickly, because it's just a matter of time, explain how much that has negatively impacted your community?
I'm from Orangetown in Rockland County. We actually obtained a restraining order to prevent them from coming until it goes through the court system. The county just north of us has received hundreds and hundreds at this point, and I can't speak for them.
And you have had hotels filled up with like often single males that are filling up places so that needy individuals aren't able to get facilities and aren't able to get the resources they need. Is that true?
Yeah, the goal of Mayor Adams was to send 340 single adult men to a hotel in my town. It's been put on hold by the courts.
And where is your town again?
In Orangetown, which is 30 miles north of New York City.
Okay, so not on the southern border of the United States.
No.
And so this is something we're dealing with, as my friend from Arizona, Mr. Biggs knows, and my friend from California, Mr. McClintock, and others know on the border. We deal with it all the time in our communities in South Texas, but this is something that the entire country is now dealing with. And I'd like to now move to Ms. Nobles, and I cannot possibly put into words, Ms. Nobles, what you have experienced as a result of the failed policies of this country. I would simply ask, as carefully as I can, having met with numerous family members who have lost loved ones due to these failed policies, whether it's through violence, as you have unfortunately experienced, or whether it is through, for example, fentanyl poisonings that so many of our moms have experienced. I met with 3 fentanyl moms just 2 weeks ago in Austin, Texas. I've met with dozens. I've met with dozens of individuals who've lost loved ones, including a family member in San Antonio whose son was killed by an illegal immigrant who had been here, had been arrested, let go, arrested, let go, and then burned this woman's son to death. That's what we have going on in our country, while our colleagues on the other side of the aisle bury their head in the sand and pretend that somehow it's compassionate. I would just ask you, Ms. Nobles, to explain whether or not you've had interactions with other moms and family members who have had similar unfortunate experiences as a result of our failed policies.
Unfortunately, I haven't. I haven't seen anybody talk about their story or shared anything about, because I know Kayla wasn't the only one, but where are they? So that's why I'm standing up and talking about her story and getting her story out. At least I can speak for my child and make sure that I make people aware of what's going on.
Well, Ms. Nobles, I'm going to, after this hearing, connect you with angel families who have had a number of these experiences that they've put out, with the Vargas family in San Antonio who have been dealing with loss from these kinds of policies. And I would just ask Chief Scott, are the current policies stopping the kind of violence that can occur through having, for example, in this case, a UAC, an unaccompanied alien child, who ended up carrying out this crime that Ms. Nobles had to suffer from. I want to ask you that question, but I also just want to point out, and before you answer the question, and then I'll yield back, I just came back from the federal district courthouse because I went over there to support Jaime Zapata's family, because Jaime Zapata was gunned down by the cartels in 2011, and the sentencing is going on right now as we speak. Cartels are empowered at our border. They're empowered by China. They're empowered by our own federal government failing to do its job, and Americans are dying as a result, and so are migrants. Mr. Scott, if you can answer that question, and then I'll yield back.
The current crisis is making it impossible to be able to weed out the criminals, especially the UACs, from anyone else. The agents don't have time to do face-to-face interviews. There's no global database of criminal records.
Thank you, Chief Scott.
Mr. Chairman,